Cyber Squirrel cyber war ops are on the rise. Goodbye, Internet Explorer, kind of. Cisco's shadow IT tools and ponies. All that and more coming up now on ThreatWire. Greetings, I'm Patrick Norton, and this is the first ThreatWire of 2016, January 13th, 2016 to be exact. Your summary of the threats to our security, privacy, and internet freedom. And hey, quick shout out to all our supporters at patreon.com/ThreatWire. I love me some perspective, especially this early in the new year, so let's talk about Cyber Squirrel 1. The title on the Washington Post article about Cyber Squirrel 1 says, quote, "Are squirrels a bigger threat to the power grid than hackers?" And it's a great question, says the crew of researchers behind Cyber Squirrel, which exists to point out one fascinating thing. For all the bluff and bluster about 21st century cyber warfare, we must protect America's critical infrastructure, spy on all the people. Thank you, Dianne Feinstein. There's been one case of a hacker taking down a power grid, and that was in the Ukraine. But squirrels chewing through power lines happens all the time, constantly. Seriously, look at the map on cybersquirrel1.com. That mass of orange pins you see, that's just 2015. And yeah, it includes birds, coons, snakes, rats, and beavers, along with squirrels on the list. Russia and China get the big zeros. The U.S. has, I guess, 1 point for Stuxnet. It's hard to tell. But seriously, Cyber Squirrel 1 has a point. Don't believe the hype. They got a great quote from John C. Inglis, former Deputy Director of the National Security Agency, who says, quote, "I don't think paralysis of the electrical grid is more likely by cyber attack than by natural disaster. And frankly, the #1 threat experienced to date by U.S. electrical grid is squirrels." Now, we just need to convince Congress to do things like stop spying on the American people and fund government agencies like the OPM so they have proper IT staffing to secure critical data. And maybe then we can talk about going house to house and wiping out all the squirrels. Let's see that bill make the floor. And people, this is sarcasm. Don't sick PETA on me. I don't have time for it. We hope to talk to the Cyber Squirrel 1 crew soon. They've got an interesting story to tell. Shadow IT, well, it sounds like it came straight from a bad TV show about hackery, but Cisco's new cloud consumption as a service, which launched this morning, promises to help IT monitor the use of tools that aren't deployed by IT that have become critical to employees. Think Docs, Sheets, Gmail, Dropbox. This is all in an interesting report by Business Insider. The Shadow IT concept also covers things like, well, YouTube consumption, Spotify, and pretty much anything else you might run on the network that ID didn't put there or give you a password for. Why? Well, imagine if you are dealing with medical data and you need to figure out if anything anybody's doing on your network will violate HIPAA regulations, or if you want to monitor bandwidth consumption, track potential malware vectors, or malware, as most humans would call it. In any case, you might be wondering why you should care about strange IT tools that live in the cloud to make sysadmins' lives easier. Look, anybody that doesn't already understand that you pretty much have no rights on the internet access in the office, you need to know that. And with tools like this, it's even easier for anything you do on the corporate network to be monitored and potentially, hey, engineers that want a patent owned by a corporation. Now, Cisco says a typical company with 5,000 employees has 1,200 Shadow IT apps running, though that might be a bit of FUD from Cisco, given that IT pros estimate the number is around 90. Or it could be that Cisco knows a lot more about what's moving around on your network because there's Cisco. It's an interesting read. Check it out. And remember, kids, don't put anything on the network at work that you don't want to share with your boss, or at least the IT staff. Adobe and Microsoft dropped a modest flurry of patches on yesterday's Patch Tuesday, at least compared to the veritable flood of updates that hit in December. The biggest one for me, though, was MS16-001. That's the cumulative security update for Internet Explorer, which is the brace for impact, people. Last update for Internet Explorer 8, 9, and 10 on Windows 7. So if you or any of your family, friends, or coworkers are way behind the curve on IE, it is time to get them updated to IE 11, because that's the only one that's getting patches moving forward, as in any flaws that are found in older versions of IE are not going to get patched. And since IE is a part of Windows, yay, not something you can uninstall. That's a big hole you want to make sure is plugged. Sophos' Naked Security blog has some good write-ups on this, and we've linked to them in the show notes. And from the seriously people, it's time to turn on dual-factor authentication department here at ThreatWire. Motherboard has learned that several personal accounts and the home phone number of the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, have been compromised by the same group of self-proclaimed stoned teenage hackers that broke into CIA Director John Brennan's email account last year, or more accurately, John Brennan's AOL email account. Says a lot right there. Look, AOL, as far as I know, does not offer dual authentication options for their email, but just about every other email platform does. And seriously, it is time to turn on dual-factor authentication. You may not be the head of a major government agency, but it's not a bad idea to lock your stuff down. If you go to twofactorauth.org, you'll find an amazing resource for figuring out what tools online do offer you a chance for an additional layer of security. Two-factor authentication, dual-factor, whatever you want to call it, that basically means, like, to get into this, you also need access to some sort of, text message from your phone, a key fob, a special account number, but something that requires 2 layers, one of which is not accessible on the computer to get into your account. Not a bad idea, and something really more people should be looking into. Foolproof? No. Better than nothing? Absolutely. Our featured comment today comes from Marquise Richardson up on YouTube, who in response to the 5 biggest hacks of 2015 says, quote, "Nothing against Patreon, but they were hacked also. The Hack5 team should set up a Bitcoin account where people can just contribute." Okay, Marquise, you think that Bitcoin's secure, and I'm with you on that. The math seems pretty good. The problem is all the mechanisms between Bitcoin and buying a sandwich or a can of cat food. If you think those are secure, well, that's cute because, well, let's see, we've had exchanges collapse, wallets that have been hacked, and of course, there's the whole volatility of the exchange rate, which has been stable for a while, but it's an exchange that exists in a virtual world, which makes it even less sort of, well, stable, I think, than the ones in New York City. Seriously, it's a possibility, but we're going to have to talk about it, Team ThreatWire, before we even go anywhere near that direction. Thanks for the comment, Marquise. If you have any thoughts on today's show, please leave them down below. And seriously, everybody who does contribute on Patreon, I really, really appreciate it. If you enjoy the show, kick us some cash to keep it going. Become a patron at patreon.com/threatwire, and we may even feature your adorable fur babies. I can't speak today, people, like this one, that one right there. And if you aren't a pet person, send us a picture of your favorite car, truck, or Ethernet connection, and we'll feature that right there too. Seriously, Patreon lets us make this show completely independent and ad-free. If you can't donate, a like, a share, and subscribing goes quite a long way too. You can find all our episodes, links to our social networks, and other ways to contribute over at threatwire.net. With that, I'm Patrick Norton, and I will see you on the interwebs.